So today we're going to cover how iStation works, the ISIP assessments themselves, how to log in both as a student, what your students need to do to log in, and then what your teachers, you as teachers will do to log in, the reading program, what that looks like, how it works. Tony is going to walk you through the reporting portal, show you some of our resources and some of those key reports. And then we'll talk a little bit about what's next, what's to come after this webinar. And then we'll provide you with a quick survey link that you can take, as we're always looking for feedback on how to either improve or just ensuring that we're meeting the mark. So the goal today really is just to ensure that you feel comfortable and confident enough to walk away today after this short hour to be able to get started with iStation, get your kids on the program, you logging in as teachers, understanding the program, understanding a couple of key reports, and then knowing that we're going to support you every step of the way as we move through the school year. So how does iStation work? We have a very unique systematic approach. And the first thing that happens, and for those of you that did use iStation last year as the K-3 diagnostic assessment for the state, you're familiar with ISIP, iStation's Indicators of Progress. And that is our nationally normed assessment and progress monitoring system. This is really the backbone of all that we do at iStation. So the goal here for these assessments is to collect data on students' performance in reading. And once we've done that, then students will move into the adaptive curriculum and move into their individualized instructional path based on how they performed on that ISIP assessment. And really the purpose really is to work on reading skills that they need regardless of grade level. And we'll talk more about how that works. But again, the ISIP drives what they're going to do in the adaptive curriculum. So once those things have happened, then we're going to be able to gather data on our reporting portal, which Tony will walk you through, to give you real-time data to help you inform and guide your instruction, to really help you problem solve, to identify areas of need, to help you analyze deeper, to help you come up with a plan, to come up with small groups, to help you set goals for students, and then ultimately really to help you measure and monitor the success of your interventions, to help you measure and monitor the success of your instruction. And then we're also going to continuously provide you with ongoing professional development throughout the year to ensure that we are improving and giving you those increased student outcomes that we want to see. So that's how iStation works as a systematic approach. So the first piece, again, we talked about ISIP. How does that work? And again, for those of you that are K-3, you're very familiar with how the ISIP assessment works. But for those of you that are fourth grade and fifth grade teachers, this is brand new to you. And so to give you an understanding, ISIP really examines those reading skills that are most predictive of future reading success in students. So we're measuring progress in each of the individual areas of reading instruction to provide you with a comprehensive snapshot of a student's reading ability. So as you can see here in this table, we have it broken down by grade, and then you can see that there are subtest areas that are normed for each grade level. And these subtests are automatically given to students monthly when they log into iStation to take the assessment based on that grade level. And the wonderful thing about ISIP is that it is computer adaptive. And what I mean by computer adaptive is that at the actual question level, it's computer adaptive. So if I'm a second grade student and I'm receiving the subtest of vocabulary, the first time I take the vocabulary subtest, I'm going to receive a question at that second grade level. And then depending on how I answer that question, it could get more difficult if I answer correctly or less difficult if I answer incorrectly. So again, the goal here is to find out that student's zone of proximal development. and then, kind of hone in on that student's ability. The other neat thing is that it's not only computer adaptive within the items within the subtest, but it's also computer adaptive within grade level, meaning that if I'm a second grader and I'm taking these 4 subtests that are normed for my grade level, if I struggle and there's an algorithm in the background that says, hey, Julie's really struggling, and based on the fact that she took vocabulary, comprehension, spelling, and text fluency, but she has a low enough score that the next time that she takes ISIP, we think that she needs to take phonemic awareness and letter knowledge and decoding, right? Because we need to ensure that we're understanding where that breakdown in skills are. Then I would start receiving subtests that are actually outside of my normed grade level. And that happens automatically without you as the educator having to do that. And the same thing happens going into an upper subtest band. So at first grade, if I've mastered phonemic awareness and letter knowledge and decoding, those types of things, that means that those things would drop off my battery of my assessment. So again, we're looking at that student's zone of proximal development so that we can pinpoint instructionally what they need to give you data to help inform next steps in your instruction, right? The item difficulty within the grade levels really goes from a pre-kinder level all the way up through about a grade 12, depending on the scale that we're using. And you'll understand that when we move into what that looks like. But again, this computer adaptive piece really is important because it gives you not only the overall snapshot of your student, but down to that subtest level as well. Students that take the reading comprehension subtest, those students will be given a Lexile level because we did a linking study with Metametrics that developed the Lexile framework. And the Lexile really is going to help you, one, match students to resources, and also help you guide you to help formulate small groups as well. This is the view of what students would see when they log in to take the assessment. Again, for my K-3 teachers out there, you're very familiar with Alex Trebek and Bettina White and what students see. For my 4th and 5th grade teachers, they have a choice. These kiddos are going to have a choice of the theme that they choose when they log in to take the assessment. We really do want to give them some student agency when they log in to take the assessment. To choose the different themes. When students have taken the assessment, and this really pertains more to you and the data that you get back, is we've broken down the data into what we call levels or quintiles for those of you that look at it through the lens of percentiles. And most of you are familiar with the tiering system, so tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. But what we've done is we've broken those tiers into 20th percentile cut points. And that just means that tier 1 would be what we call level 1. Those students are at the 20th percentile and below. And these students, we recommend intense intervention for targeted small groups or even one-on-one instruction. Our tier 2 or level 2 students, those are students that, require supplemental intervention, such as targeted small group interventions. And here, tier 1 or our levels 3, 4, and 5 is really where we can start disaggregating the data at a more granular level. And this is important because oftentimes when and I'm saying this more as me, when I was an educator in the classroom and I saw students in green, I assumed that meant good to go. That meant they're on track, they're on grade level. And I just, oftentimes would lose sight of those kids and focus my energy on levels 2 and 1 or tier 2 and 3. And so what we've done by breaking them down into these levels is really helped you to look through the lens of differentiating core instruction and really looking to understand that students at levels 3 and even 4 truly do need some more guided help when you're looking at differentiating core. And so we're still working with the state. We're still working with your district leaders to give you information as we get further down the road on the proficiency cut scores for you. But again, this information is meant more to signal to you the level of instructional support that your students will need. The ISIP assessment will take approximately 20 to 40 minutes. And the reason our goal here was we wanted to be able to give you a screener that gave you the ability to assess quickly so that we could give you instructional time back in your day. And when I say 20 to 40 minutes, the reason we can't say an exact amount is because it's computer adaptive, and some students may take longer, some students may finish much faster. So it will take around that time to complete the assessment. The ISIP assessment will automatically be given to students the first time they log into iStation each calendar month. So for example, today is September 3rd. If they were to log into iStation today, and I know that the district has made recommendations that they wait until September 12th to log in, but if they were to log in today, they would be given an ISIP assessment. And then once that has happened, and for those of you that are K-3 teachers, before they would just take the assessment, they would log off of iStation and not touch the application until the next month. But now, because you all have access to the instruction, at this point, they would continue logging into iStation, and they would actually be placed into the instruction to work on that adaptive individualized path throughout the month until they logged in again at the beginning of the calendar month, and they would take the assessment. In addition to those monthly automatic progress monitorings that happen, you have the ability as educators to do on-demand assessments. And this just allows you to assess more frequently, or to assess if you have any type of technical issues or an assessment interruption or an attention, that type of thing, if you know that the data is not valid for some reason. Another way to use it, the way I often used it before, was in an MTSS or RTI type setting, was really, I look at my data, I find the area of need, I pull some intervention resources, I provide those resources, and I go back in and I just want to hone in on that specific area that I've intervened in. And so I target that skill. And so I go in and I just provide a quick probe, essentially, of that specific skill, so I can capture data to see, did that intervention work? So really, it's that fourth piece of the problem solving. Did it work? So that's one way you can use the progress monitoring, or the additional on-demand piece. The iStation testing windows for WAKE this year, for your traditional and year-round schools, for beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year. So you can see September, January, and May. And then for your modified year-round schools, September would be your beginning of the year. And I know that your district leaders have requested to the State Board of Education that they allow for middle of the year to take place in February, and that end of the year take place in June. And so they're still waiting for approval, but I wanted to let you know that they have put in that request for those months for those modified year-round schools. So now that we've talked a little bit about the ISIP assessment in itself, you're probably wondering, how do students actually access the iStation application, and how do they log in to actually take the assessment? So I'm going to walk you quickly through those steps. So students would log in to their WAKE device with their WAKE credentials. Then they would select Homebase or the NCED Cloud. They would then use their student ID number or their PowerSchool credentials to enter the NCED Cloud. And once there, they would click on the RTA iStation icon. And that looks like a child with a cape on top of a book. Once there, they would actually click on the Launch the iStation application. You'll notice that there is an icon there that says Launch Oral Reading Fluency. However, the district has made the decision as of right now to inactivate the oral reading fluency assessment for students. That is a decision that they have made, and it will be accessible to students later in the year, but they haven't made a decision as to exactly when that will happen. And so right now that is an inactive button, but they can click Launch the iStation application and it will take them to the iStation main menu. You can see here, these are the icons that students have available to them. But what you want to focus on is the Reading with ISIP button. And that icon or button is going to be the place where students click to take the ISIP assessment, as well as where they access the reading instruction. So it's one button for them to access the instruction and one button for them to take the assessment. That's where they're going to access that individualized instructional path. My K-3 folks last year, you guys, your kids did have access to the iPractice button, but those were just separate activities that they could use for practice. That was not the individualized learning path. And so we have created some videos that go through these steps for you, and we'll talk about that, but the videos really do talk about focusing in on just that Reading with ISIP button for right now. When students are taking the assessment, you'll see that there is an indicator that shows that ISIP is in progress. And for early reading, which is grades K through 3, that progress bar is at the bottom right-hand corner. And then for my students that are 4th and up, that progress indicator is at the top, upper right-hand corner. That just lets you as the educator know, and especially your parents or the caregivers that are home during this remote environment, know that ISIP is in progress. And this is really, really important because I had mentioned earlier that ISIP determines the placement into the instruction, and that students are placed into the instruction seamlessly upon completion of the ISIP assessment. That means that once they've completed the assessment, they fall into the instruction. And I had mentioned earlier also that the assessment takes anywhere between 20 to 40 minutes to complete. I get calls every single year saying, Julie, you said that the assessment only takes 20 to 40 minutes. My kid's been on here for over an hour and they're still taking the assessment. That's because they fall into the instruction automatically. And we did that on purpose, mainly for a classroom management perspective, because if we have kids taking longer to take the assessment or they complete it sooner, they fall into the curriculum so that the students that need longer can finish it, right? And so this allows, this is an indicator for you as the educator, if you're walking around and monitoring, or for the parent to know that ISIP has been completed once that indicator bar has disappeared. So this is just important for you all to know that information. What the steps I just went through with you, how students log in. These videos are available in both Spanish and English on your iStation Canvas course, and your district leaders and your campus leaders will know how to give you access, or where they can tell you where to find that information. But yes, you will have access to these videos. They're great for you, but they're also great for the parents and guardians at home that will be working with students virtually and remotely. So now that we've walked through how students log in, let's talk about how you as the educator log in. So similar to how students, you're going to launch Rapid Identity, you're going to click the same thing. You're going to click Homebase or NCED Cloud. You're going to click the same icon. You're going to click iStation, the RTA icon. And then you're going to click on Access to Reporting Portal. From there, you will actually go out to the reporting portal with the credentials, with your credentials. Once you're at the reporting portal and you've logged in, this is where, and then Tony's going to walk you through this live, but this is where you can access reports and different resources, help centers, training videos. You can also access the teacher demo account, which is the iStation program, similar to what students have access to, from here as well. So once you see your name in the upper right-hand corner, You click on your name, it drops down, and you'll see where it says Launch iStation app. And that will take you to the iStation program or teacher demo account where you can access the same things that students have access to. So this is where you can take the ISEP assessment just like a student. You can experience it, and it's going to default to the grade level that you teach. So if I'm a fourth grade teacher, it's going to default to a fourth grade assessment. You can actually model ISEP if you're a K through 3 teacher. You can model that for students if you're face-to-face with them in the classroom, or even if you're virtual or remote, you can actually, if you have video conferencing available, you can model that for students before they take the assessment the first time. You have access to Teacher Station, which we'll go into in more detail as we progress down our ongoing professional development throughout the year. You can also take the oral fluency. And I'm mentioning this because that's the only button that's different than what students have access to than to what you have access to. Students do not have that oral reading fluency button, but you do. And the reason you do is because, again, the district has made the decision that students don't have access right now, but they did want you to have access so that you could become comfortable with an understanding of what it looks like, how it feels, so that when students do begin to have access to take that portion of the assessment, you'll have an understanding of what that looks like. So we've walked through the steps on how you log in, and there's also a video available to you as well. So the curriculum, what does the curriculum look like? The curriculum itself is really, again, it's based on, and students fall into the curriculum based on how they performed on the assessment. So once students have taken the assessment, they will fall into the instructional path. And students, as you can see here, we have students represented. These are some of our characters, student values and opinions and beliefs and perspectives and backgrounds are represented in a variety of different ways that you can see here through these different characters that I'm showing you here. Students, again, they're going to fall into the curriculum based on how they performed in the assessment. So if I'm a fourth grader and based on my assessment data, it shows that I'm really struggling a little bit with some foundational skills of literacy, I may fall into what we call earlier cycles of instruction. I would fall into cycles of instruction that are still teaching me or teaching me skills that are learning to read skills. Our cycles of instruction go all the way from cycles 0, which are kind of pre-K foundational functional skills of literacy, all the way through what we call timeless tales and next level, which is end of middle school content. So we have content that spans from pre-K all the way through end of middle school. And students can be placed into those cycles of instruction, again, based on that zone of proximal development of what they need. And so they could be placed in skills that are learning to read, reading to learn. But the idea here is that we are differentiating the instruction. Our goal here is never to replace you as the educator. Our goal is really just to enhance a student's learning. And this becomes really important right now in the world we find ourselves in, virtually and remotely, because it's hard. I can just imagine in that virtual kind of space is trying to differentiate for all students. And this is one way where you can be rest assured that students will receive differentiated instruction and reading in that virtual and remote environment. The lesson structure itself really follows along with that science of reading, the idea of really that research-based approach. So what should it look like? How do we support all students? And it's around that kind of integrated approach, that spiraling of instruction that's following that precise research-based sequence and looking at elements of sound instruction like explicit and systematic scaffolded instruction. We provide modeling and corrective feedback immediately. We also focus on instructional routines. And that's important as well, because instead of students worrying about what the lesson format's going to look like, they're actually focused on learning what that skill is going to be. And that's done through the gradual release model. So we do the introduction and teach, the guided practice, the independent practice, and then the in isolation, and then the independent practice and connected text. So really connecting things back through that scaffolded instruction. So how long should my students be on iStation? The recommendation here is at least 40 minutes weekly. And that would allow you to ensure that we're kind of moving the needle based on the research that we have on iStation, is saying if they're on for about 40 minutes a week, then we know that we can increase student outcomes in reading. And my recommendation is, you can see the asterisk below, is to make sure that students are on for 20 minutes per session to complete a lesson cycle. So if I go back here, you'll see that this lesson format, we're going through that gradual release model, right? So it's the intro, the guided practice, the independent practice. And so in order to get through a lesson cycle, we want to ensure that they have at least 20 minutes to do so. So if we're looking at about 40 minutes a week, I would break that out into about 20-minute sessions. And just as a reminder, this is really scheduled for practice or the instructional support segment of your time, not to be used during your core instructional time. And with that, I'm going to actually pass the baton over to Tony Montgomery, my wonderful partner in crime, who's going to walk you through some resources and report on the portal. And just as a reminder, as she's showing you the data, to look through the lens of these 5 levels.
All right. Well, thank you, Julie. And Julie's going to take us to www.istation.com. And so as we go there, we're going to show you, after you've logged in, you have your credentials, we are going to look at our home. We'll start with our home page of our reporting portal. And so when you look at this page, I want you to start to think about, how can I get some help? If I need some help, Julie's going to scroll down and we're going to start with the Help Center. And so that's a green box. And when you see green, that's a place where you can go to learn more. I want you to look at this page and see how it's organized. And you can go where the Help Center starts with Let's Get Started, and it gives you what happens on day 1 and even through that time. And then you can look at the resources that are available for you, and really the recorded webinars and the ISIP Users Guide. We're going to look at that in another way, but this just gives you a place. Now, I want to remind you that you will have an iStation Canvas course specific to Wake, but you can come here to build your iStation acumen. This is where you can, those people that are more curious about what's going on, this is going to give you a plethora of information that you can find out about iStation. Julie, take me to the top of the page where it says Get Help. This is another place where you can go to get help. And so she's going to go down and she's going to go to the iStation Users Guide. So for you that have used it in the past, this has been restructured, and our search engine looks a litle different. So she's going to go in, since she's been talking about the ISIP. Why don't you put ISIP in for me, Julie? Thank you. And then, just like any other search engine, it's going to give you all the articles that are listed here. She's going to select the very first article just to show you how this is formatted. If you want to look, you can see the table of content to your right. And then you're going to look down the page, and it's going to give you specific information. It's going to define things for you. It's going to help you understand and reiterate some of the things that she has shared with you already, like CAD Adaptive. And then you're going to see here are the specific assessments that you can notice. She just clicks on one, and these are collapsible. She's going to click on it, and you can go down and then you can read through everything that's available about the sub-tested areas that you can see here around advanced reading. So this is just the place where you can go to get a little more information. Thank you, Julie. Would you take me back? to that home page. Thank you. I want you to go to your name because Julie mentioned you going in and taking the assessment. That happens right here. Once you have the app loaded onto your computer, you're going to go here and I want you to see that you can go and launch the ISIP app, the iStation app from right here from your single sign on, and you don't have to go out, you don't have to put any other information. It's going to log you right in, and that's where you can take the assessment, and that's where you can practice taking and using the curriculum as well. And we really suggest that you do this monthly. Now, one thing I want to remind you about taking the assessment, you have to remember to take it like a student and not try to get everything right. Thank you, Julie. Julie, would you take me to the toolbox before we go? One more item where you can get all kinds of resources is right here in the toolbox. I call it my jewel box because it provides for you a lot of information that you can find out about the assessment and about the curriculum. And so this is there for you so you can look on and look at different ways that you can interpret when we go to the different reports. So thank you, Julie, for doing that. And now take me to my classroom tab. Going to our classroom tab, this opens up for you your roster. I call this my desktop. It provides for you all of the information you need about your students as well as your management tools. So let's look at the page itself, but we're going to start by going to the Get Help. Now remember how the Get Help, excuse me, actually gave us some information that you could just go in and just put in information. Now I want you to notice how it is built around this particular classroom page. So it is interactive. So when she clicks on the tour, it's going to take you around the page and you can go through next, and it will explain everything on this page. So if you forget what we're talking about, you can go here, and then it gives you how to use the page. And again, it's going to go into the IUG. It's going to give you that information. It's going to give you step-by-steps. And so this is where you can, again, if you want more information about the classroom page, you can get it right there. So let's go down and look at the page itself. We're going to look at show status. This reflects what Julie talked about when she talked about the instructional levels. And you can go here and select each of those levels and see how many students actually have performed on the ISIP and where they are. So you can see she's just clicking through those levels. The last part is the incomplete. If you have students that have not completed the assessment, and this is going to be important, especially those that are serving students in the virtual community, this will give you an idea of who you need to address, especially if you said, I need to get my ISIP finished within this Windows time. So that'll give you that idea. Would you go back and select all the students so we can see who's in our class? I just love being able just to see everybody. So that's really important. If you also notice the status for the month, it also gives you activities for the week. And so you're going to see the number, how many minutes are your students really using on the program, which will reflect your ISIP as well as their time in the curriculum. That's going to come up in pretty purple. Now I want to show you and give your attention to the left side of this page. The left side of this page is where you'll have your management tools. This will really reflect what Julie talked about when she talked about you being able to go in and use on demand. You can see on demand here as one of your options. You can select that and then go in, look at how the students are doing. Now I want you to know that the on demand is only going to reflect those students who are in level 1 and level 2. Doesn't mean you have to give them another assessment. It just gives you the picture that these students are students that you need to pay attention to and maybe even provide some intervention for. Or if you are progress monitoring, this is also where you would do that. And so as Julie goes down that left-hand side of the page, you are going to see related reports. Now this is important because this is where we're going to get the information that we need from the students' ISIP as well as eventually from their curriculum. responses. And so we're going to start by looking at that very first report in reading. This is my ISIP summary. Just like it says, it's going to give you a summary. This is a global picture of your classroom. This is how all of your students have performed at one time on the assessment. So you get to look at, what area are my students really strong in, and what area do I need to provide support for as I start to think about my core and as I think about interventions. That's going to be really important. So as you read this particular report, the chart itself starts at the left-hand side, looking at the overall. It's going to give you an overall score of all your students. And then it's going to then break down the results in every sub-tested area that you have. I want to remind you that when you get to the text fluency, that is not part of your overall score. That's going to always be a standalone score. And we'll talk about that more in future trainings. And so as we look at this report, I want you to think about, this is going to give you a snapshot on how you can start thinking about instructional support in your core as well as individually. As Julie scrolls down this page, you're going to see how this report is structured. It's looking, and now we're going to go to our overall score, and it's going to then set up your students again in the levels, starting with the lowest level, moving to your highest level. That's going to give you an idea of that student that jumps out at you. I also want you to notice that there are blue plus signs all across this page and behind the student's name. I'm going to tell you, my little cognitive hook says blue means more. I don't know if you're going to write that down or you want to think about it, but blue means more. That means there's more information to be found out about that student or about this particular area. So Julie's going to go, and we've been looking at Daniel. He's the student that's listed first. I'm sort of concerned about him. I'm going to go select that plus sign. As Julie selects that plus sign, that is going to now take me to this student's history of reports. I get to see, so every month as your students finish the report, they are going to, the system is going to provide you this information in each of the sub-tested areas. We're going to look at phonemic awareness, and that's just one of the areas. So I want you to know sub-tested areas, each of them are going to be listed. You're going to see their score. You're going to see the overall level. And so when you click it on that blue plus sign, blue means more, I want you to stop and look at how this report, now I'm getting more details. So this is a detailed report. I want you to pay attention to how this report really gives you a legend. This will let you know if your students have excessive idle time. That means that that student is sitting there and the computer is just running and there is no interaction, no mouse interaction, no touching the screen, nothing is going on. So that's idle time. That's important when we look at our virtual world. We look at excessive abort, so you'll see yellow dots, and that means that the student is getting in and out of the program. And that could mean a couple of things. It could mean that the internet is having issues. You know, we have that now with so many people being on the internet, so it might kick the kid off and they might have to get back on. So this becomes a conversation, or that the student is getting in and out of the program. And then the other blue mark I want you to pay attention to, especially if we're providing that virtual service, is that that means that the students they're doing this activity or this ISIP not at school, so they're at home. So those three colors I want you to pay attention to when you go into this report. As Julie scrolls down the page, remember we said that we were going to look at phonemic awareness. For our teachers who use early reading, they've seen this before. For our teachers who are now doing advanced reading, you will actually get to see how the students responded to each question. You will see that they will tell you exactly what was asked of the student. Here we're just asking for a sound that sounds like pool, and then the student is supposed to respond to that. I want you to notice their response. It gives you the score, and it gives you the response time. Critical as we start to think about how is this student really understanding the concept? Is there automaticity with that student? And so I'm looking at this, and I want you to notice that besides the score, there is a little plus sign or a little cross. that lets you know that this is in practice. And the computer is giving the student examples of how they want them to respond to the question. So as you go down and you continue to look, these are not counted in the student's assessment at all. But when it starts to count, that little plus sign goes away, and our very first question, we see that the student timed out. 8 seconds and the student is out. The computer will then go on to the next question. It won't wait for the student because it's looking for automaticity, right? And so it goes on. You see the next question. It says, what's the same sound that you hear at the beginning of goat? And it is gum. The student selected that in 6 seconds. That's auto. The student is on it. And then we go to the next question. And now we're looking at soap. The student timed out and the student continues to time out. So this becomes a signal to the teacher that the student is either frustrated, doesn't understand, doesn't have the automaticity to actually do the task that's been asked of them. And so this is really important. This gives you a real good snapshot of what's going on with the student. And you can see this in every area as well as in the curriculum. So Julie, if you would take me to the classroom tab. So I want y'all to notice that when I go to the classroom tab, that is really where all of my information lies. I'm now going to look at the next report. My next report I'm going to look at is the classroom summary. That classroom summary report is what I say is just, it gives me all of the information for all of my students in one place. And again, it's organized just like Julie showed us in the levels and instructional levels. How important is that? That's really important when we start to look at how we're going to maybe group students or start to provide that instructional support at that intensive level. I want Julie to go starting at the left-hand side, and let's walk across this particular report. It starts, of course, with the student's name, and those students who are in 10% or below, they're going to come up in this nice little peachy color. So those students, our flag goes off, we really need to provide some assistance. Then we get the ISIP overall score, and that is what the score that helps us look at the percentile ranking, which we know is a national ranking. And so now we can look at that percentile score, and that starts to tell us how close students are together or how far they're apart. Now we're going to look at Lexile, the Lexile level. Remember, Julie told us that the Lexile level comes from the comprehensive assessment. That's really important, so we'll know that we get that. We've partnered with
Metametrics.
the Metametrics. Thank you. I lost that. Thank you. We partnered with Metametrics, and they have come in and Lexiled all of our assessments and our books and our materials. And then it gives us our current cycle. And our cycle she talked about, which is part of our instructional curriculum, and it tells you exactly where that student is performing at this time. So we look at those areas and we say, how can I start to group my students? So this will give you an idea of how to group your students, and possibly you could do it by doing percentile ranking, looking at those students. So if Julie touches any of the headers in the columns, it is going to now line those students up either from the highest to the lowest, and that will then allow you to start to look at maybe I'll have to cross levels to really pull together my groups. That is really important. Or if I'm looking at Lexile levels, I'm really starting to look at what is the reading specific area that I want to really start to focus on, and this is going to put my groups together in a different way when I'm starting to look at reading materials or reading levels. And then I'm going to go to the, we won't really focus on the usage, but we're going to really focus more on the cycles. And now I'm going to start to maybe pull together students who are in cycles together, and that will give me another way to group my students. And you can see that those cycles go across the different levels. This is just one more tool that we can use as we start to think about putting students together in small groups. Now we're going to go and we want to look at a student in specific. So we're going to look at Daniel. We're going to click on Daniel. Remember, he was that student that we saw that was the lowest, and we looked at his specific assessment. Let's look at his student summary handout. I call this my ISIP report card. It gives you the student's grade, but it also gives you some resource information that you can send home to the parents to help them read this particular report. Also, it gives you the cycle, the current cycle, and it gives you the Lexile score that you can then start to individualize for the student as you provide support. You can look at the ISIP. It gives you the current level that the student overall reading level. Now I want for you to really pay attention to each of the different charts that we see here, because each one of these will provide you some information. You say, what are these yellow dots? Those yellow dots are assessments, and those assessments are what the student has, how the student has performed from month to month. Or if it's an on-demand assessment, it will show up here as well. This chart will give you where that student is in their percentile rank, and it will also allow you to look at progress over the months. So now I'm looking at the student's individual progress from month to month in each one of the sub-tested areas. So this is really important as you start to think about communicating with the student as well as the parents. Now, I want to tell you something about this chart before Julie moves on. To get that trend line, you have to have at least 2 assessments. So remember, it takes 2 assessments to draw a trend line. And then you'll see that blue line. And for our youngest kids, they can tell, is that blue line going up? Or for our older kids, they can really start to interpret if they're doing, how well they're doing on these different sub-tested areas. So Julie, take me back to my classroom so I can sum it up, and then we're going to go back to the PowerPoint. So I want you to remember, you go to your name will take you to take the assessment and for you to actually look and experience the same thing the students are experiencing. You go to Get Help, and that's going to take you to the IUG, and you can also tour the pages there. You can also go to your left-hand side, and you'll have all of your management tools here to continue to support the work that you're doing with the students, and then you'll scroll down the page and you'll go to your related reports, and that's where you'll be able to look at the reports and be able to make that decision. And so as we go on and we go back to the PowerPoint, we're going to continue to say, what is next? What is next? We're going to have ongoing professional development. Julie mentioned that we're going to be with you all year. We're going to do many modules, and there'll be little video vignettes that you'll go in, and we will make things bite-sized, easy for you to really get in and to get to quickly. And then we'll have data digs. We're going to do those webinars together where we'll get in there and look at that data and see how it supports the work that you're doing in your classroom. And parent-facing videos, we're going to do those in English and in Spanish. I'm going to tell you that Julie does a really good job with that. And so we're going to be able to really help your parents understand how well their students are doing. And then currently on the iStation Canvas course, you will see the student login videos that was mentioned earlier in English and in Spanish. So that's a way that you can really support your parents at home. There's going to be teacher login videos there just to jog your memory to help you remember how to get in. And then the ISIP remote guidance for parents. Again, one more tool for you to use as you help your parents understand how we are supporting their children while they're in the virtual world. Now, I want you to take a picture of this slide, because this slide is going to hold a lot of information for you. Julie's going to take us here to this Padlet, but this Padlet has been designed just for you as you are getting started. So, and you will need the Wake password to actually get in. So Julie's going to take us to the Padlet. So you can see, I want you to look at what's available for you on the Padlet. So you can see, we talked about cycles. Here are the cycles. You can download the cycles. This will give you an overview of what's being taught in each one of the cycles. It's not everything, but this gives you a great deal of what it is that's being taught in every cycle. This will give you an idea of how students are doing and how this parallels or supports what you're doing in your classroom. And while we're there, we also are going to look at what's available for your parents. And your parents, here's remote guide for your parents. And so it's on the website, but it's here for you. It gives you everything that that parent needs to understand and see before, during, and after assessment. We also have a guide for you today. Okay.
Yeah, Tony, I was gonna, this is actually a remote assessment guide for you as educators. Just to help you, before assessment, during assessment, some tips and tricks, and then after assessment, some things you can do, fidelity of assessment, and then some data analysis and type things. Also, the PowerPoint itself that we use today, I've put it in a PDF format so you have access to the slides. And then the recording will be put on your iStation Canvas course as well. So,
thank you, Julie. One more thing before you leave. And if you would go down to the teacher checklist, and you will show them that the reports that we talked about today are here. It tells you the purpose of the report and gives you some guided questions. So as you look at the report, it'll give you an idea of how to interpret that information there and then to be able to use it as best to support the work that you're doing. Thank you. So take us back to the PowerPoint. And so the question is, if I encounter some issues with iStation, what do I need to do? Contact your campus leader first. And if they really need some answers, they can contact the district leaders. And we know that that is Mr. Rita Smith, Sean Johnson, and Kat Mulder. And their information is right here, and you can follow up with them. And then your district leaders will get in touch with the iStation support team. We just want you to know that we have already thought through this process, and we want you to know that you are going to be supported as you do the work this year. And so we just want to say thank you. Thank you for all that you do. We truly look forward to being here with you, serving you, and providing you and the students the help that you will need this year. So as you think about the work that you have before you, know that you are not in it alone. Julie?
I couldn't find my unmute button. Thank you, Tony. No, a sincere thank you. We know that this is definitely a new endeavor for you as you move forward into this year, and we will be here to support you throughout. There's a large team here at iStation to be of support for you as we move forward through this year. And as we also move forward, like we mentioned, there's going to be a lot of PD going on for all of you. And we want to make sure that we are meeting your needs. So there's a survey for you. If you can quickly go into that, or at least take a picture so that you can, or scan it so you can do it later. We want to make sure that we're providing and meeting your needs as well. So with that, I think we have a few minutes before the hour is up, 3 minutes to be exact. And we will stick around to answer questions. But for right now, we are done with content. So thank you so much for your time and the best of luck. And we are thinking of you as your students return, either face-to-face or virtually. So good luck, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you.